Have you noticed recent headlines about the US moving forces across the globe? It's not just routine. These movements may shift alliances, influence rivalries, and even change regional strategies. Today we'll break it down so you can understand why the world is watching every step. And in this video, we'll explore the recent US military deployments and what they mean for allies and rivals alike. We'll keep it simple, step by step. By the end, you'll see not just the what and where, but also the why behind these decisions. By understanding the basics, what's happening? Over the past few months, the United States has been repositioning forces in several key regions. This includes ships, aircraft, and even specialized troops moving to areas like the Indo-Pacific, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. For example, you may have seen news about aircraft carriers heading towards strategic waters. These aren't random, they often serve multiple purposes. They can reassure allies, show presence, and sometimes act as a signal to potential rivals. Think of it like chess. Each move is carefully planned. Just like in chess, one movement can affect many pieces at once. For nations watching closely, it can signal intentions without any words being spoken. 2. Why allies pay close attention. Allies rely on US forces for security support. When US troops move, it can sometimes reassure them that help is near if tensions rise. For instance, countries in NATO or in the Indo-Pacific often coordinate with US forces for joint exercises or rapid response drills. This isn't just about showing muscle. It can strengthen trust and encourage countries to align strategies with the US. Some smaller nations may even adjust their own military plans based on these movements. Here's a simple example. If a US Navy ship enters a certain region, nearby allies may increase their own patrols or start joint training. It's a ripple effect, and it shows how one action can build confidence across multiple nations. 3. Why rivals watch even more closely. On the other side, rivals see US movements as signals too. They might not call them threats, but they often interpret them as intentions. For instance, if US forces increase presence near a contested area, rival nations may respond by boosting their own forces or adjusting diplomatic strategies. This isn't automatic. Sometimes rivals may ignore the movement. Sometimes they may respond cautiously. For example, recent US activities in the South China Sea or near Eastern European borders have prompted careful statements, increased surveillance, and minor military exercises from rivals. It's a constant game of observation, interpretation, and calculation. Each nation tries to predict the next move without overreacting, and that's why analysts say these movements are watched as much as they are executed. 4. Timing matters. The timing of these movements can be just as important as the location. Forces may be repositioned after political developments, economic news, or regional disputes. The US sometimes moves forces in response to signals from allies or rivals, not just proactively. A recent example is when forces shifted closer to a region after rising tensions in a hotspot. This does not mean conflict is imminent. It may simply allow for faster coordination, evacuation support, or joint training. So, when you read a headline about US troops moving, it's worth thinking about the timing and context. Why now? What's happening in the region that might make this necessary? 5. The role of technology and intelligence. Modern deployments often rely on advanced technology. Satellite imagery, drones, and real-time communications mean that movements can be tracked almost instantly. Allies can get updates faster, and rivals may notice too. For instance, joint exercises may be announced in advance for transparency, or sometimes observed remotely. Both allies and rivals interpret what they see to estimate capabilities and readiness. Imagine it like a sports team practicing before a big game. Observers watch the practice to guess strategy, strength, and timing. The US often considers how visible movements may influence perceptions, which is why some deployments are public and others discreet. 6. Political and diplomatic layers. Military movements aren't only about defense, they're often intertwined with diplomacy. Sending forces may support treaty obligations, reassure allies, or align with international commitments. At the same time, movements may signal dissatisfaction with rival actions. For instance, repositioning forces near a disputed border can show concern without direct confrontation. This allows diplomacy to continue alongside military readiness. So, every deployment has layers: operational, political, and strategic. Understanding all three helps explain why global audiences pay attention. The impact on regional stability. US movements can sometimes calm tensions and sometimes cause concern depending on perception. Allies often feel safer knowing there is a rapid response capability nearby, but rivals may feel pressure to adjust their own policies. For example, a show of force in the Middle East may reassure some countries while prompting others to enhance air or naval patrols. The key point is that movements don't guarantee conflict or peace. They influence how nations plan and react. This is why both analysts and news outlets emphasize that context matters more than raw numbers or locations. 8. How citizens and viewers can understand these movements. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by headlines about troop movements, aircraft carriers, and regional tensions. But breaking it down step by step helps. Ask yourself, where are the forces moving? Which allies benefit from their presence? Which rivals might respond? What recent events or tensions might have triggered this? Keeping these questions in mind allows you to see beyond the headline and understand the broader strategy. What do you think? Are these movements mostly reassurance for allies or strategic signals for rivals? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. Even if you're not living in these regions, U.S. force movements can affect global trade, security, and international diplomacy. Shipping routes, regional disputes, and alliances can shift subtly based on these actions. Think about it like traffic in a city. A change in one major intersection can affect routes across the town. Similarly, a U.S. deployment can influence planning, negotiations, and readiness far beyond the immediate area. And if you're watching this from a country far away, you might be surprised how these movements can still affect your news, economy, or even travel. To summarize, U.S. force movements are carefully planned, often signaling multiple intentions at once. Allies see these movements as reassurance and may adjust their own strategies. Rivals watch closely, interpreting them as potential strategic signals. Timing, location, and context matter more than just the numbers. Technology, intelligence, and diplomacy all play into how movements are perceived. Understanding these movements helps viewers make sense of global events without panic or exaggeration. By watching closely, you can see the world not just as headlines, but as a complex network of strategy, trust, and observation. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe for more.